Well, stocks in London are recovering after a brutal day in the UK Parliament, which saw British lawmakers trade barbs over Brexit. The House of Commons was reconvened after the country's highest court ruled that Prime Minister Boris Johnson's decision to suspend Parliament ahead of Brexit was illegal. Now, London's FTSE is rallying despite the tense scenes in Parliament, which included the Prime Minister challenging the opposition to oust him in a vote of no confidence and trigger an early election. Frankfurt's DAX was also buoyed by a survey showing consumer confidence in Germany rising for the first time this year. Now, over in Asia, stocks were mostly up on hopes that the US and China could strike a trade deal soon. That's after US President Donald Trump said a deal between the two countries could come sooner than you think. Now, US stock futures are edging higher, boosted by optimism about those trade talks. Investors are also encouraged by reports that China is expected to increase its US soybean purchases. And oil prices are extending losses from the previous two sessions. Crude is under pressure after Saudi Arabia said it was quickly regaining production volumes after recent attacks on its oil facilities. Let's get more on the markets now with Russ Mould, who joins us from London. He's Investment Director at AJ Bell. Good to have you back with us, Russ. Now, let's start with Brexit. We saw raucous scenes in Parliament the other day after it was reconvened in the wake of that Supreme Court ruling. How are investors feeling about the road ahead for Brexit right now?
Well, yesterday wasn't anything to be particularly proud of from a national perspective, but it shows that the debate continues, and frankly, 3.5 years after the vote, we still face multiple possible scenarios. At the moment, the default scenario is the UK leaves the EU with no deal on the 31st of October, because a deal has not been agreed, it's not with the EU, it's not been ratified in Parliament, and even if the UK decides it would actually quite like a delay, the European Union would have to agree to that, and there is no guarantee, even if history would suggest that extend and pretend is a classic EU policy in these circumstances.
Yes, now across the Atlantic, US President Donald Trump seems to be giving mixed messages about the US-China trade war. We saw him deliver a stinging rebuke against China's trade practices in the General Assembly, followed by the prospect that perhaps a deal was imminent. So what are the markets feeling about that?
Well, I think everybody is hoping for a deal. I think of that there's no doubt, but whether we're close to one or not, we really don't know. We have the President's tweets for it, but as you say, one moment he's all sweetness and light, the next moment he's very, very aggressive. I think we can take some good leads from the fact that America and Japan look to be moving towards a trade deal. They've reached an agreement overnight involving agricultural products and digital products, although not yet on automobiles. So at least that's one deal that looks to be very close indeed. So there is some encouragement being drawn from that America and China can come to a deal. But given that intellectual property is such a hot issue for America, I think that, and that's so closely linked to the trade talks, it might not be as easy to reach an agreement as we would all like to think.
Okay, another one to watch. Russ Mould in London, thank you for your analysis.